Look at this guy. Wild eyes, huge grin, pointing at something in the dark only he can see. The four people at the fire have exactly one job tonight. Figure out if he is a genius, a prophet, or a problem. And for most of human history, when the group decided you were a problem, there was a go-to solution. They put a hole in your head. I am not exaggerating for the thumbnail. Archaeologists keep pulling up skulls, thousands of years old, with clean holes drilled straight through the bone. Not from a fight, not from a hungry leopard. Somebody did that on purpose, with intent, probably while humming. And the truly unhinged part, a lot of those skulls healed back around the hole, which means the patient lived. They walked around afterward with a custom air vent in their head, and someone called that a successful procedure. Some patients even came back for a second hole, repeat business. The logic was simple. Something bad got inside the skull, so you open a window and let it leave. Bad headache, hearing voices. Uncle is being weird at dinner, and this was not one strange tribe. Trepanation shows up on almost every continent in cultures that never met. Ancient Peru, Old Europe, parts of Africa, all independently arriving at the same genius plan. When you cannot see the thing hurting someone, invent a thing you can stab. Then stab it. The next civilization got more sophisticated, mostly in that they stopped drilling and started billing. In the cities between two rivers, a troubled mind was not a demon in the bone. It was a god with a grudge. The theory went like this. You had broken a sacred rule, offended a deity, and now a giant divine hand was pressing down on your entire life. So they invented the consultant, a priest whose whole job was forensic accounting for your soul. He studied your symptoms, studied your dreams, then checked them against rows of clay tablets. A database of every possible sin and its matching punishment, baked into stone. Basically the world's first diagnostic manual, and it ran on rocks. And if the first ritual did not work, that was not the priest being wrong. It just meant you had angered a second, sneakier god. The system literally could not lose. Every failure just became a little more homework for the accused. They aimed the cure at the sky and missed by a solar system. But here is the part nobody expects. The notes on those tablets are sharp. They were watching real people, writing down exactly what they saw, being weirdly rigorous about it. Right observations, wrong everything else. Meanwhile, just across the water, another culture looked at the exact same raving guy and decided he was not cursed. He was blessed. The Greeks then pulled the greatest plot twist in this entire story. They took the trembling, raving person everyone else wanted to drill, and they promoted him. If the gods were talking and this guy was the only one who could hear them, then obviously he was not below everyone. He was upper management. Their holiest site ran entirely on this. A woman would sit over a crack in the rock, breathe in whatever mystery gas was leaking out of the ground, and start babbling. And people treated it like breaking news. Kings waited days. Whole armies refused to march until she had finished yelling nonsense at them. The strangest voice in the country was the one everybody leaned in to catch, and nobody dared question the business model. You do not audit a woman the gods are speaking through personally. One of their most famous thinkers doubled down. He wrote that the best things in life arrive through madness sent from the gods, and that the calm, sensible, rational man is honestly the one missing out. Let that land. The exact person we would medicate, they put on a pedestal. Crazy or genius was not even a debate. The verdict was genius. And then one grumpy doctor stood up and ruined the vibe. His name was Hippocrates. Yes, the oath guy. And he was not buying one word of the god theory. To him, a troubled mind was not the heavens reaching down. It was plumbing. He was sure the body ran on 4 fluids. Too much of the dark one, black bile, dragged you into a heavy, hopeless gloom. We still use his word for it. Melancholy comes straight from that black bile. For centuries, depression was called, and I promise this is real, the black goo sickness. Was he right? Absolutely not. There is no reservoir of sad sludge in your torso running your mood. He missed the biology by a mile, but the core idea was radical. Suffering comes from the body, not from a furious sky god. And it took the species another 2,000 years to catch up to that. He crossed the finish line, turned around, and the whole world went, cool, meet you there in a couple millennia. Then Rome grabbed his ideas, kept the useful bits, and immediately figured out how to weaponize them against grandma. Rome, to their credit, kept the medical stuff alive. One well-known Roman doctor prescribed warm baths, long walks, better food, and, incredibly, talking. Actually sitting down and describing what was eating you out loud to another person. Not quite therapy. but you can see the shape of it forming in the fog. Enjoy that because it is the last genuinely kind idea anyone in this video has for a while. Rome's real contribution was a legal loophole. They invented an official word for madman, and if a relative went off the rails, the family could march to a magistrate and have them declared legally insane. That person then lost everything. No rights, no property, no say, nothing. A guardian took the whole estate. Now watch how fast this gets abused. One brother is genuinely unwell, the other is perfectly fine, extremely rich, and standing suspiciously close to a nephew who has been eyeing the family villa. Suddenly the rich uncle is eccentric. Suddenly he needs looking after. Suddenly the paperwork writes itself. A law built to protect the sick became the express lane for robbing the inconvenient. Nothing says family love like a hostile takeover with a doctor's note attached. And remember, every one of these decisions is still just a few people around a fire, deciding what a strange mind is worth. Then Europe hit a long stretch where the official diagnosis reverted back to, and I quote, a literal demon, not a metaphor, an actual devil living inside you to be prayed out, starved out, or beaten out. That is the version everyone remembers. But it is only half the room, because at the exact same time, from Spain all the way to Central Asia, another world was doing something that sounds made up. They built hospitals for the mind, with gardens, with running water, with actual live music for the patients, places designed for rest instead of punishment. One physician there, a man called Ibn Sina, wrote a medical book so good it stayed in use for centuries. And 1,000 years ago, he described sadness, dread, mania, the spiraling thoughts of an anxious mind. Then he prescribed conversation, talking, gentle suggestion, slowly changing what a patient believed about himself. The man basically invented talk therapy. No exorcism, no drill, no demon, just a doctor, a garden, and a conversation. 1,000 years before that became the normal way to treat a mind. And a few weeks of travel away, other people were still lashing humans to wooden posts. Same species, same century, wildly different fire. But the strangest answer of all did not come from the doctors, the priests, or the philosophers. It came from a tiny town that quietly refused to give up. Now the jokes stop for a second, because this part earns it. There is a town in Belgium called Giel, and more than 700 years ago, without a single expert telling them to, the people there started doing something no empire ever managed. The mentally ill came to Giel as pilgrims, hoping to be healed. And when they were not healed, the town did not lock them up or send them away. Ordinary families just took them in, gave them a bed, a seat at the table, a place in the day. They were not patients in a ward, they lived in the house. They fed the animals, worked the fields, walked to church, and they grew old inside a family that was not theirs by blood, but became theirs anyway. No chains, no cage, no word for madman. Just a person, given a home by people who decided that was simply the obvious thing to do. And here is the line I have read 3 times and still cannot fully believe. Giel is still doing it. Right now, this year, families in the town are living side by side with people whose minds work differently, the same way their families did 7 centuries ago. A tiny Belgian town quietly solved the hardest question in this whole story. Then it just kept the answer running for 700 years, while every empire and every expert came and went. And the experts, when they finally showed up, often made it worse. In one famous London asylum, the public could buy a ticket and stroll the halls to gawk at the patients, bring the kids, point at the suffering. A lovely afternoon out, human misery, now with a family discount. Then, just over 200 years ago, a doctor walked into a place like that and ordered every chain struck off the patients. And the entire room stared at him like he was the crazy one. He was not. He was the sanest man in the building. So go back to the fire. The wild eyes, the grin, the finger pointing up at something only he can see. And the 4 people around him, still deciding. Here is what took this whole story to see. The voices in his head were never the variable. In one place, they made him a prophet. In another, a prisoner. In one Belgian town, they made him family. He never changed. The people around him did. Whether a struggling mind was a gift, a demon, a disease, or a person worth keeping was never really a fact about that mind. It was a choice made by everyone else. And that choice is still being made, somewhere, right now, on a screen, by you.